Tamara, thanks so much for coming on a Sunday. I see you've got your hands full with the little one there, so I really appreciate you coming in. I know you're so busy. You came to Kelowna 6 years ago. Tell us the story of how you ended up in Kelowna.
Sure. So I am a prairie girl, born in Saskatoon and kind of raised all over the prairies. We moved a lot growing up. And I ended up in Winnipeg for school, like for university. And so I was in Winnipeg for about 7 or 8 years. And we would come out, even growing up, we would come out here camping all the time. Like, I remember the Enchanted Forest by Revelstoke so vividly from my childhood. And my parents were real campers and wanting to make sure we were always outdoors and stuff. And so BC was always where we went. And then when I was about 25, my aunt and uncle who lived in Tappan got, or had their anniversary. And so we came out for that. I saw the Okanagan as an adult and was like, okay. And then I broke up with a boyfriend in Winnipeg and I thought, why am I here? Like, I get to choose somewhere else. So I actually found a place. I didn't know anyone from Kelowna. I just looked at the Okanagan. I loved Salmon Arm area because that's what I'd known. But I thought, it's not quite big enough for me. It's not quite young enough for me because I was 26. And so kind of Googled Kelowna. Had never really been here. I knew a friend of a friend who had been here, so she told me about Castanet, which I was like, what is that? And I was like, how do I find a place to rent? And I found a room to rent for $400 and drove with myself and my cat from Winnipeg to Kelowna in like one hop. Stayed in Golden at like a hostel and then just showed up to my room here and have loved it ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you start working right away? As soon as you got here?
I worked virtually for a company in Winnipeg. So I didn't need to worry about a job, which was nice. That was one nice thing about moving to the Okanagan is that I just continued my work for the marketing agency I was working for at the time. Mm-hmm. And I did that for about 2 years after moving here. Yeah. Yeah.
So since then, you became a director of a charity called Her International. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that charity, and then I want to ask you, how did you get involved with it?
So interestingly, about 6 years ago, when I first moved here from Winnipeg, I had volunteered a lot. I had traveled to Africa, India, and El Salvador all before moving to Kelowna at 26. And I got to Kelowna and was like, where's all the charities? Like, where's the culture? Like, I was really kind of like, ooh. So someone told me, you just moved to, like, one of the waspiest cities in Canada. And I was like, oh, no. And then I started looking, though. And there's so much here. And I started just kind of emailing charities that I found to just say, and now it's kind of funny. I go to International Development Nights. I'm like, I've literally volunteered forever. I'm like the serial volunteer. But I found, so Her International is called IWIN then, Intercultural Women's Education Network. And I had just got back from India about a year before working with adolescent girls in a slum and knew that was kind of the area of the world. We work in Nepal. And I just knew that was kind of the area of the world I wanted to work in. I really wanted to work with adolescent girls because I just think that's such a pivotal age where you can kind of remain whole in that time, or I was a young girl who had a lot of stuff like that just was hard, and I just wanted someone to kind of, if I would have had that leadership and more self-confidence at that time, it would have really changed my life. And so I found IWIN. I volunteered for them at Sparkling Hills. Was my first event ever. I was like, what is this place? This is heaven. And that was about 6 years to the day that I got the job as co-executive director. So myself and another woman share our role.
Yeah, what's that like? Do you guys, what do you have to do if you have a difference of opinion? Arm wrestle?
You know what's so funny? Well, she lives in China, so we're not close enough to arm wrestle. She and I were both board members. Yeah. We had never met in person because her husband works for the U.S. government. They moved all over Taiwan, China. We had never met. We'd met by Skype a couple times, but I actually had a dream when the job kind of came up. I had a dream that her and I shared it, and I Skyped her in China and pitched it, like, do you want to share this? And she was like, yeah, we're both moms. Like, we don't, she has 3 kids. We don't have a ton of time, so we were like, if we share this, we can actually both really do this role well.
Yeah.
And we are yin and yang. Like, so I don't know that we would really have that much of a difference of opinion because she's very focused on, I mean, she's one of the literally most brilliant people I've ever met. And she's focused more on our programming, on monitoring and evaluation, on big picture stuff that she can do from China. And then I'm like boots on the ground and also the PR marketing side, which I have a marketing background.
Very cool.
And so we complement each other so well. And I think it's taught me a lot about how important it is that women collaborate.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just, everyone says like collaboration over competition, but like we really, really do that. And so it's so nice and it's so supportive. We both, you know, will Skype at different times and have our kids there or, you know, be making supper, be doing stuff. We just totally can understand each other on that level.
Mm-hmm. Have you met in person
We
yet?
have, yeah. She came for our AGM last year.
Where,
so we met.
Where is your AGM?
In Kelowna here.
Is it the same every year?
It's usually pretty. We just did it at Third Space Coffee House last year, and it was so good we did it again this year. So it's in October. Date is sometimes, you know, different. But so she came last year for that, and then her and I spent almost a month in Nepal together with Onyx.
Wonderful.
And my co-parenting partner who came to watch Onyx for me, and Katie, all spent like about 3 weeks in Nepal together on the ground.
You know, I've heard it said that if you want to know if your relationship is strong, like let's say you're kind of friends with someone, you're an acquaintance of someone, go on a vacation with them. And that applies to friendships and romantic relationships and everything. And if you like the person more or you like the person less, at the end, that's a pretty good sign. Totally. So did you like her and appreciate her more at the end of this month?
So much appreciation for her.
Yeah.
There's definitely times when you're traveling, especially in Nepal, and it's 40 degrees heat and the smoke, like it was worse than like Okanagan forest fire smoke air, because of India forest fires that were sweeping over. But,
you see a person under stress.
Yeah. Times got like a little rough, but she was always totally there, you know, and she didn't have her kids, which was so nice because I would be like, can you help? You know, and she would. And, I had so much appreciation for her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So great. So tell us about this organization. Yeah. You mentioned it works with adolescent girls. What are some of the programs and some of the things that you try to do for these girls? So
Her International is a 13-year-old charity. So we started, like, it feels like forever ago now. There's like 86,000 charities now in Canada, but I feel like we've been, you know, in front of that charge a little bit, and we've been in Kelowna since the beginning. But our founder kind of felt called to travel. Her name was Michelle Bonneau. She's an incredible woman. Just won like the Meritorious Service Medal Award from the Governor General for her work with Nepal. Awesome woman. But she just felt called to go to Nepal. She went around the time that the Kamlari system was still in, which was bonded labor. So girls exactly the age of your girls would be sold for $50 a year to work for families, and they wouldn't see you for a year. And
so it's basically slave labor. Is
Totally.
it really harsh conditions or
like working 13-hour days?
Wow.
You know, living conditions are sparse anyways. But yeah, not ideal. And almost
$50. $50
$50 a month. Or I mean a year. Yeah. And this was pretty regular up until the year 2000. Then the Nepali government abolished it. Like, that's no longer legal. But, it still happens a little bit. But most of the women that we work with now were bonded slaves who came back, you know, finally after a certain number of years. Either their parents finally make enough money to buy them back or they run away. Lots ran away. And so Michelle kind of landed in the region of Dong, which is where we work. And she started with girls' scholarships. So now these girls are at home with their families, but the girls stay home, the boys go to school. So she started funding scholarships. Now we have 166 girls that we sponsor annually. And then the interesting thing that kind of happened in 2009 that shifted everything was that the mothers started saying, like, it's like, to me, it's like your children going to French immersion and you don't know French. They're like, we need to get educated so we can mentor our children. And we would like to do something to make money to pay for our children's tuition and stuff. And so we started mothers groups then. So mothers groups now, there's about 25 to 30 women that meet. They meet weekly or monthly, and they come together, and really it's like a therapeutic thing. Like they help each other with all kinds of issues. There's some interesting stories with that too, just how much they have each other's back. It's amazing. If a husband's beating his wife, like the mothers group shows up at the house, like you need to stop that and stuff, which is really cool. So there's an emotional part to it, but then they also do micro savings. We don't give them any money until they reach a year, and then we give them some money as kind of seed money, but it's really just done by them. Yeah, so like we just hired the first ever woman's tuk-tuk driver when we were there, Pharma, and she just like drove us around. And she was the first.
Is that like a rickshaw?
Yeah, like an auto rickshaw, yeah.
So she's like a taxi service.
Totally, and like the first ever taxi woman there.
That's wonderful.
Which is so cool. It was
what is
so
it
awesome.
like over there? I mean, do they generally have electricity and climate control?
No, the traditional Tharu like hut, which they're the Tharu people, is the indigenous population that's really in Dong. And their huts are made of cow dung, rice, husk, and mud. And I just thought they were adorable. Like, they were so cute. They all paint them the exact same. And I kept saying to them, because they, like, would have no electricity, but lots of solar. They would have lots of, like, little solar panels, which I was amazed at. One of the families had a biogas plant, so their toilet, or latrine, which was, like, out in their backyard, the waste from it, they hooked up this biogas plant that powered their stove, and that's how they got cooking.
Wow.
And
so it generates heat.
Like heat or electricity, or I'm not sure really, but I told her, I'm like, I have a lot of hippie friends that you need to teach. This is off-grid living at its best. And like, so I was kind of amazed at the way they lived, and it is clean. Like it felt clean. Whenever they would have us over for dinner, it was more than enough food, even though they didn't have much. Like I came back being like reverse culture shock for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
which I had experienced a little bit in the past, but Nepalis are even different than, India or any of the other places I had been.
What is the climate like? Is it similar to Kelowna or very hot? Or?
Really hot. Yeah,
really
it was really hot while we were there. And then they have monsoon season, which would have happened quite quickly after we left. And that's just crazy. Torrential rains.
So is it, I guess Nepal is very mountainous, but if it's hot, is this like kind of a low-lying part of the country?
Yeah. We work in a totally different region. Like everyone goes to Nepal to trek, and most of even our volunteers trekked. I never saw any mountains while I was there, like in the distance, but we just went straight to the region, and it's kind of prairie-like. Yeah. So
what about agriculture? Like, what do they eat? Is it cattle? Is it grains?
Water
vegetables?
buffalo, goats. I swear, Onyx came back. My son came back. Like, literally any animal, he'll grab a stick and go, go. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not good. Because, they have so much herding that they have to do, right? But they have like kind of fresh milk from that. And then they have pigs, chickens, lots of really good vegetables. They made amazing. It almost felt Mexican in the sauces that they made, because it was like fresh herbs, and everything was so fresh, picked from the garden. You say organic there, and they're like, what? Because it's like everything's organic. Like they don't really have the money yet for chemicals or like big farms.
Right.
They're starting to. The mothers groups, like we have 1,000 women in mothers groups, and they're starting to get bigger and bigger.
Amazing.
Their market gardens are getting bigger and bigger, but right now it's like 1 or 2 acres, and yeah.
And I just had a mental blank. So, so these girls, now you're trying to educate them, teach them life skills, I guess safety, things like that.
Yeah.
Like what kind of things are you teaching?
Our main, our primary kind of focus is education to the girls. The mothers groups, we bring in more life skills like numeracy, literacy. They just ask for like mushroom farming, all the goat, chicken, cow farming, and then also a few little trades are starting up there, like a little bit of like plumbing or a little bit of, I mean, there's lots of tailor shops. They make a lot of like, there's Nepali donut shops and stuff.
Okay.
And then we have a Hero Girls program we just started that we're so excited about. And it is being piloted in January. And it will teach entrepreneurial skills to the 16-year-old range. And also like self-worth. There's mindfulness components that I got to actually like write out from my yoga training, which was so cool. But just starting each lesson with a mindful component, and then ending each one with a gratitude component. And so it's really neat to see that kind of moving its way there. And the reason why we started Hero Girls actually is because we had 2 15-year-old girls die by suicide in the past year.
Really?
And we started to recognize there's a bit of a gap in that age range, because when they're younger, they're just going to school. Once they hit there, they're going to school, but they're also pretty responsible at home for domestic chores to a real extent, especially mothers who are now working or working out of home. So all the pressure's on the 16, 15-year-olds. And so we...
Are girls typically having children at 15, 16?
Or exactly. Then, or that's the other risk, is that they're starting to get pregnant and drop out of school. So the hope with Hero Girls is to kind of catch them in that range and to teach them that they're so worthy and so enough, and that they are worthy of a future, and to also give them a bit of community to support them if they are feeling stressed at home.
What is the culture like as far as dating? So where are the men in this picture? Is it typically like they have a short-term relationship, turn up pregnant, and then they get abandoned?
You know what? In the maybe older range, I find Nepalis to be one of like the gentlest populations I've ever met, and a lot of the men in our women's group started actually working for their wives, like getting to leave their jobs, and now they're like milking the cows and doing stuff like that, and they're very team oriented, but the women go and get the support. So I thought that was really, really neat to see. And the boys that we interviewed at school, there's still this old mindset that, girls are really just needed to for certain reasons. But there was starting to be in the younger boys, like, girls can do anything they want to do and that kind of thing. So, and we have one of our staff, we have 3 like staff right in Dong, and they're all women, and 2 had arranged marriages. So that's still very typical, but one is single and she's 25, and so it's cool, and so I guess she gets some free will as far as what she's going to do next, which is
that's very cool.
Exciting.
What about the language? So you speak English, obviously. They speak Nepalese.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
So how do you communicate?
The ones we work with have working English, so we can get by with them. And then we have 2 translators that come with us. But we have 2 staff from Kathmandu as well. Our country director, Dinesh, who is a man running a women's NGO, and he would go into the village, and he's just a man of the people. Like, he's amazing. And he can translate for us pretty good. And Sarita, even, who runs our women's programs, she can translate for us pretty good. But definitely there's elements where when you get with some of the older women's groups, because the younger kids too, like, they all know English because they're learning it so much in school. So like, I felt like I could communicate better with the 7-year-olds than with a lot of the mothers groups who just don't have that working English.
Is there a dominant religion over there?
Primarily Hindu. Yeah. Like you'll see lots of...
Is the church or the Hindu religion temple, is it very influential?
Not a ton there, not in Dong. Like, I'm trying to think of even where, like, a lot of people there do puja, which is kind of prayer and worship and lighting candles and that in their homes. Yeah. And everything's really, like, kind of internal, and they pray as a family and stuff. But it's embedded in their society, but I wouldn't say it's super influential in a negative way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about Western influence? Like, do people generally have televisions and internet, and do they watch Hollywood movies? Or
it's definitely, you can tell, like with the grandmothers, they would be in traditional saris. In the mothers, they'd start to have a little bit of like give in that, and then the young girls are all almost in jeans, and they still all wear scarves that represent the Tharo kind of culture, but it's definite a generational change that's happening. They don't have TVs really, but everyone has a cell phone. Every kind of adolescent girl that we
like
met.
a smartphone with you.
Not a smartphone, but like for sure texting.
Text.
They can text, like pay to text and stuff. Ones. It's starting to get in Dong. It is still really just market oriented, so you don't see any like McDonald's or any of that's infiltrated Kathmandu. But if you're in Kathmandu, like it feels like, I don't know, to me, going to India first and like spending some time in India, going to Kathmandu, I was like, this is like a retreat town. Like, and it was touristy, and you could go and have, it was very cultural restaurant wise and stuff. You could go have pizza that night, and so it's really infiltrating it.
Interesting.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
If they take the good, then hopefully it'll be good. But
sure. What got you into volunteering? So you mentioned that you've been a volunteer for a long, long time. How old were you when you first remember volunteering?
I definitely remember doing Christmas cheer with my mom every Christmas. So we would go in Verdun, which is this small town in Manitoba that we were in from when I was 10 on, and we would create Christmas bags for families. And it was like just expected. We would do it even younger than that, probably. Like we would always buy a present for a family who needed it. You know how you could like go to Walmart and like buy a present for you, buy a present for a family. We would always do that. My dad was often, because we lived in a lot of small towns, and we moved like every 2 years because he worked for Federated Co-op, which is, we just get placed in these small towns. And he would always be like the president of the Chamber of Commerce. And so he would always have board meetings. And I think it was like really just expected. It wasn't ever like, I don't know, it was just something you did. Small town Saskatchewan, small town Manitoba. Like you just, it's just so part of what you do. Yeah.
I think it's a great thing. I'll encourage people to do it. Every time I volunteered, I always felt great afterwards, very satisfied. And I think we need reminders, our schedules and everything is so hectic that we kind of forget that this is really a good thing to do.
Totally. And I mean now, like, so my dream always was to work in the field. And I quit a very, like, good marketing job to come and work for charity, which isn't maybe the best financial decision. But it literally is my dream. It feels so good on so many levels. But even with that, I still volunteer for other organizations.
Yeah.
Which now I get to kind of blend in with my work, which is really nice. Like we partner with Hope Outreach here, who goes out on the streets every night helping homeless women in Kelowna. We volunteer and do some stuff with Caris Support Society here, and Mamas for Mamas. We've done some collaborative stuff with them, and so I still, it's interesting because going from serial volunteer, literally for like giving up so much of my time to always volunteer, to working for it and having a 2-year-old, I still just really think that when you actually do something so selflessly, there is nothing that fills you up like that.
Yeah, so true.
You just, and like I've walked away from so many, like Silo Mission in Winnipeg, Gospel Mission here. Like you work one night feeding people who need it, and you just like, you walk away in tears. Like you just have goosebumps knowing that like that's part of what we're here to do. Yeah.
I recall a time in 2013 I was having major financial issues, and my boss told us we had to go volunteer at the Gospel Mission and serve food. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't have time. I was like very self-absorbed with my own problems. And honestly, when I finished that night, like you said, it was like I felt so much lighter. Like my problems were not that big of a deal, and I could, even see solutions for myself, because just the feeling of gratitude, I think, really just shifts your mindset.
Right. And we actually, we kind of incorporate a volunteer component to the work we do in Nepal so that the women can volunteer. Like lots of the women who already work at the health post there are volunteers. So they just show up to serve, which is so cool. But we really have this give back model where we know they can't financially give back, but we don't ever want to just give out. So then we require them to mentor other girls, to spend some time volunteering, and that, I think something just clicked for me as you said that really helps them to change their mind. And actually this year I want to do a fundraiser we're holding a fundraiser on International Women's Day. That's like, we did it last year. It's called Hope in Her Eyes. We partner with Hope Outreach. It's awesome. But this year I want to get the Nepali mamas to do a little fundraiser for street women here in Kelowna. And even if it was like $27, I would print a big check and have it like presented, as that they have done that. Because one of the biggest problems that Katie, my co-AD, and I see is that aid doesn't work very well when it's just the white knights coming in.
Yeah. Dropping off some money, taking off.
Totally. Yeah. And that like when we're there, we're like, they're so lovely. We know that they have so much to contribute back. It's not like, I felt very like while I was there, like this is just really screwing me up kind of in my mind, because I feel like I'm here to be doing something, but I'm getting way more. Yeah. And I had done that a couple of times already in my life. And I'm like, there's something here that we need to turn them into the teachers, them into the fundraisers, and them into the mentors, not always having them be the receivers.
Yes.
And it's time for some of us to receive emotionally, which can happen in that reciprocal giving, right?
Yes.
On this side. So, because we're not very good at receiving on this end of the world. We're really good at giving and stuff, but it's like hard for a lot of people to receive. So if we can, that's what Katie and I want to do, is shift some of that,
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I want to just shift gears a little bit. So here in Kelowna, you're a yoga instructor and a meditation teacher. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you a little bit about meditation. So I know a lot of people think that, especially when they're first starting, they feel like nothing is happening. And, we're so attached to our phones and our schedules and, being on time and stuff like that. And it kind of almost feels for an inexperienced meditator like, I'm wasting time. I should be doing something, right? Totally. So tell us a little bit about meditation. Why do we need to adjust our mindset a little bit?
I love that you just said that. One of the things that our yoga teacher would say to us was, let your doing come from your being.
Okay.
And I loved that because I teach a type of meditation called Yoga Nidra, which is, it's about a 40-minute meditation, and it works with the brain waves is a guided meditation, which is helpful because some people just try to sit there and like turn their mind off, and they're like, they get more stressed, more anxious doing that, because it's like, in this culture, you ain't turning your mind off. Like it's hard. So if you're actually listening to something, and doing proper breathing practices and stuff, it can help your brain waves get to that delta phase, which is where I think that's the juicy part of meditation. So Yoga Nidra kind of assists the brains to get there. Then I think once you're actually in that spot, you've kind of walked out of your mind, ran away in your house while you're trying to meditate and turn it off. And then you've kind of dropped even deeper into that, where your body is actually getting to be relaxed. That is where all of my last 2 years, any idea I've had has come from. And so, and I almost now have gotten to a point where I can trust my days so much that the right things will happen at the right time. It's no longer like clenching, like I need to do this today.
Right.
I'm gonna do this today. I have to hammer this out. It's literally shifted my life to be so much more organically flowing, where I sometimes and Katie is actually, she's very similar to me, and we're just so amazed all the time because we're like, the exact right person will come in when we need them to. We're just always just kind of blown away, we need $15,000 to do this project or to make this project, applicable to this audience. And then all of a sudden that happens. And so the less that we grip, which is the doing, I find the more that we can really step into just that flow state. Mm-hmm. And I think I lived up at Big White last year and taught yoga up there. And I met all the locals who lived at Big White, and they weren't big meditators or anything, but those guys meditate every day when they're on the mountain. Mm. That's a different kind of meditation, but they would step into this flow state, and they're just living the dream. They're all living in cabins, talking to God every day, at the top of the mountain. And I'm just there's different flow states for people. So Yoga Nidra might not be it, but doing something that moves you out of that clenching the steering wheel and into...
And for me, it's circular. It's okay, like a checklist, and I go, okay, yeah, but what about this, and then this is going to affect this, and it's kind of going around and around and around in loops.
Yeah.
Where I'm, paranoid of forgetting something and paranoid of missing something.
Yes.
I got to take care of this, and then I, just loops like an infinite loop.
Totally. And that's where I think meditation can really help, because it links those circuits.
Mm-hmm.
There's something over here, and they're kind of not lining up.
Yeah.
And that's why people, even if they don't ever meditate, they're like, oh, I get inspiration when I'm sleeping or in the shower.
Yeah.
It's those are the 2 times a day where people are not gripping the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And so then the inspiration comes. It's the circuits finally can link and things fall into place. I just definitely find that lately I've been moving to the term beyond understanding, because our mind really wants to logically tell us how to do things. And I'm kind of an analyzer, so I've always worked that way. It's this comes after this, comes after this. But so many things have happened in the last 2 years that are beyond understanding. And meditation helps me to relax my mind so that I can actually just let things happen the way they need to. And already with Onyx, he's 2.5. Troublemaker. He's a troublemaker. But at night, Yoga Nidra does kind of a body scan and just goes through the body. So I'll do it with him at night, when we're about to go to bed. And just be oh, just relax your eyes, your nose, your mouth. And it's crazy. He just quiets down. And then all of a sudden it's he's just so relaxed, right? Or he said to me the other day, Mommy, take a breath. Because I was upset. And he was I'm I don't think I ever took a conscious breath until I was 27. And just having that tool at a young age to relax the mind a bit.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's wonderful.
You're going to be so awesome when you're done being mischievous. And so I think, too, meditation can kind of just help that, just connect back to the breath.
Yeah.
And things often take care of themselves.
As a person with a very analytical mind, what would you tell people, how long does it take for you to notice changes in the brain, in the mind? Do you notice it after your first meditation session, or is it something that takes weeks or months?
So I did a 100-hour training in Yoga Nidra, and we studied the brain a lot. And it took 11 hours to change the prefrontal cortex. If you did 11 hours in which seems like a lot, but when you're laying down for 40-minute Nidra, even if you fall asleep in it, it still kind of counts towards that. And so 11 hours and about
16 sessions, 17 sessions.
Yeah, about 16 sessions. Yeah. And over a month or whatever, just doing it every couple of days. But it actually changes your brain. Mm-hmm. Effects will come, more peaceful effects, relaxing effects will come far before changing your brain. But the prefrontal cortex is what's responsible for discernment, for decision making, for me, putting space between action and reaction, which I have to work at all the time with, having a toddler. It's something happens and it's oh, how do I find a tiny bit of space before I fall into typical circular patterns? And so the changes that I've seen are I can't even say enough about them, but I would say give it, what they say is 21 days for a new habit, but give it a month.
So you will see, you'll feel some stress relief and feel really good after one session. I'm guessing.
For sure.
But the permanent changes is going to take
for sure.
weeks.
Yeah, a little bit of consistency. But they're doing lots of research out of the Noetic Institute in the States, which is a mindfulness, but science research institute. And I wish I had more of the stats off the top of my head, but it's incredible. It's incredible what meditation can actually do to the brain in short.
Have you heard of Shinzen Young? So he is a Buddhist monk, and he wanted to be a scientist, but he failed constantly. And then he decided to join a Buddhist monastery, and he became a monk. And then he went back to science. So his teachings kind of combine, the scientific aspect of it, what we know, about brain waves and about stress levels and heart rate and all these wonderful things. And he really explains how, it's scientifically sound, the practice of meditation.
Totally.
So he's really, and
That's
he said
cool.
that, the ability to focus is a fundamental human skill. And that's one of the things he got from meditation. So, like, if you can't focus, you can't learn mathematics, right? Because you're distracted. And if you can't learn mathematics, you can't learn physics. And if you can't learn physics, you can't learn biology. So, you can't be a scientist.
Totally.
You can't relax your brain.
You're so
and
right.
focus, right?
And that's,
so
one thing
his whole,
smartphones are taking away is that
so
ability
true.
to, like, totally focus.
Totally true. So, how do your sessions go? Like, do you take people through a 40-minute Yoga Nidra guided meditation?
I do, yeah. And I decided this last year, like, I couldn't do it anymore without it being nature-based, because I also believe the same thing that I believe about meditation is true for being outside and walking in trees. And, like, I'm the hugest advocate for forest bathing is the term, but, like, immersing in nature, right? And I'm just, like, also the changes. I just did a TED Talk last Friday, and I said it, every day I'd be a monster going into the woods and Mother Teresa coming out. And I still am like, even if my partner and I were ever arguing, I'd be like, let's just go for a walk. Because as soon as we do, none of it seems to matter. Like, it impacts your brain at that level too. So now my yoga nidras are like 40 minutes. The first 20 or so are just kind of getting people relaxed into that zone, giving their mind something to do, setting intentions. But the last about 10 minutes are visualizations in nature always for me. Like, I'm always, and now the regulars always are like, I'm always like, you know, you see your feet on moss. That's like where we start always. And then where are we going to go? We walk through the forest or we do something. But I think the tools, my biggest ones are just Nidra and nature, and even doing it outside, like meditating outside, sitting underneath a tree. There was reasons why that was done by a lot of monks and stuff, right? And
where do you do these sessions? Do you have a studio, or is it your house? Or
my house now? Yeah. I just had this fantastic lady drop into my life, and so now I'm renting her house, and I have a studio upstairs in it. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you have a website where people can learn about, you know, dates and times and things like that?
Yeah, it's wildbreath.ca.
Wow. Okay.
And I have workshops. I'm more like one-off nidras to me are fun, but like really my specialty is like digging in with people. So I do, and it's all based on nature. So I'm going to do like 4 3-hour workshops and because also sometimes with Nidra, the first stage is rest. So people fall asleep sometimes. Totally okay. I'm like, imagine having a nap with someone whispering like sweet nothings over you. You're getting benefits, but the real treat is when you actually watch your body fall asleep, but your mind and consciousness stays awake is like when it gets awesome. So I like to do 2 or 3 nidras in a day so that people really, by the third, they're like, bring me back there. The cabin in the woods. That was so cool, right? And so I'm doing workshops this coming year where they're going to be called like earth, air, fire, water, like that kind of
wonderful
stuff. Yeah.
So we can find out more at your website.
You can.
Do you have any questions? No. Sometimes she comes up with brilliant questions after we shut the mic off. So
Yeah, totally.
I always have to check.
Yeah.
So, Tamara, who would you like to nominate to come on the show in the future?
I feel like you might have already done her, but the first person that pops to my mind is Kendra McFarland. You got to meet her.
Sounds very familiar.
Someone else might have nominated her, but I don't think so.
She did the Lake Dip Challenge last year. She organizes caroling for a cause, and she's just... I just said to her the other day, like, she's just bringing so much light to Kelowna. She really... And she also volunteers for Opera Kelowna. She just volunteers a lot of her time. She's all about building community, and so I think she would
wonderful.
be awesome.
Does she have a company that she works for?
She runs a couple companies. One is Okanagan Party Management, I think, and then she also just started a cleaning company called Radiant Cleaning or Radiance Cleaning.
Okay, I'm just asking so we can find her, but you can message Tara as well with the contact. Sounds like a fairly common name.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll find her.
Yeah.
That's Kara's job. She tracks the people down. Well, Tamara, thanks so much. It's been really enlightening, and I've loved hearing the stories about your trips to Nepal and meditation and everything else. We're going to check out your website. We'll put links to you in the show notes, and I think we should definitely take up Yoga Nidra.
That would be awesome, and thank you for doing this. I just think Kelowna is such a lovely place, and it's nice to see that stuff like this is really starting to come to the surface, and it feels really community driven now.
Yeah.
So
that's
thank
great.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Luke Mankus is a realtor. He loves what he does. We asked Luke if he had any regrets about moving here in 2011, and he always says, yeah, one regret, and that is he didn't move here sooner. When Luke came here, he didn't know anyone. He didn't know the neighborhoods or anything or anyone besides his daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. So he knows what it's like. Now, he's an expert and has helped well over 100 single people, couples, families, and investors with their real estate needs in the Okanagan. If you're new to our beautiful city, Luke can help you get connected with great lawyers, dentists, carpenters, landscapers, swimming pool installers, you name it. And whether you're new to Kelowna or not, Luke knows real estate. He can help you find a great property, negotiate a good deal, and hold your hand all the way through the process until the day you get your shiny new set of keys. Luke is known as a no-pressure kind of guy. He's had clients where it took even a year or more to get them into a property. He just doesn't believe in rushing things. On the other hand, when you decide it's time to act, he's diligent, and he'll work day and night until the job is done. Give Luke Mankus a call or a text message at any time, 778-215-4273. Again, that's 778-215-4273. 778-215-4273 to chat with Luke about real estate.